Hello everyone, I'm Brofi1322 and welcome to the first recap video for the third season of the Multi-Class Endurance Championship, where we're going to be talking about the very first round across all platforms and across all GTs. The first round took place on the Blaine County 24-hour circuit. There was a 0% chance of rain for this one. The vehicles that we were driving were Sports Classics, GT1 drivers were in the Z-Type, GT2 drivers were in the Coquette Classic, and GT3 drivers were in the Stinger GT. So, for those of you who don't know, first of all, what the Multi-Class Endurance Championship is, there is a link in the description that's in the first line of every one of these Multi-Class Endurance Championship videos that will explain everything about the championship. It gives you the full race calendar, it gives you all of the rules. But I figured I would just quickly go over it in the first of these videos so everybody knows what we're doing here. The Multi-Class Endurance Championship is basically one of the biggest racing championships on GTA. We've already had 2 seasons of it, and I certainly recommend going back and watching those videos for those seasons if that's what you want to do. But the first season started out where we had a total, because it was on old gen, we had a total of 16 drivers spread across 2 classes of racing. The whole idea between multi-class racing is that you've got different speeds of cars together in the same race, but you're only racing against people in your own class. So in that first season we had GT1 drivers and GT2 drivers. We had, say for example, the GT1 drivers in Zentornos and the GT2 drivers in Bullets, and there were 8 people in each class, and you were only racing against the people in your own class. But the whole idea behind it is that it's not just about overall pace and racing against people in your own class, overtaking and things like that. It's about having to manage the traffic and lose as little time as possible when you're overtaking slower vehicles and things like that. There's a certain art to it that is a little bit more involved than just a standard race. So that was season 1, and for season 2 we extended that, obviously because the amount of people you can get in a race was a lot larger. We extended that to GT1, GT2 and GT3, so there's 3 separate classes. Now when I say different classes, I don't mean classes in the GTA sense, because we still can't do races where we have a mix of sports cars and supercars, for example. Rockstar don't allow that. So what we do is take advantage of the fact that there are some ridiculously off the pace cars in these classes and use those as our GT1s, GT2s and GT3s. So for example, for the first round in Sports Classics, the Z-Type was our GT1 car, which is one of the quickest in the entire Sports Classics class. The GT2 car was the Coquette Classic, which was kind of in the middle of the two, because the GT3 car was the Stinger GT, which was way off the pace of a Z-Type under normal circumstances. But the beauty of it is that people in the Stinger GT don't have to worry about the people in the Z-Type. They're not racing against them. All you have to do is be first in the Stinger GTs, be first in GT3. You're not worried about trying to win the race overall, and a GT3 car or a GT2 car is never ever going to win the race overall, apart from under special circumstances, which happened one time in season 2. So for season 2 it was all a case of just experimenting with that, and we did it mainly on the PS4 side, and I created some really high level videos, I guess you could say, about season 2, and again I recommend you go watch those because they were some of the best videos I've ever made. And then the PC came after that, because we did this when the PC version hadn't arrived. So the PC version of season 2 came out after that, and they held their own. And then for season 3 it's a case of doing it on all platforms all at the same time. So we've got the exact same rules, the exact same tracks, the exact same cars, all on GT1, GT2, GT3, all on the Xbox One, the PS4 and the PC. So we've basically got 9 separate championships within 3 different platforms and 3 different classes of racing. And the idea behind these videos is that I'm going to try to focus on all of those and give you the story and the roundup from the championship as we go through. If we have any driver changes midway through the season, I can explain those. I can show some extra footage, because the problem with I'm participating in all 3 championships. I'm participating on the Xbox One in the GT1 class, I'm participating on the PS4 in the GT2 class, and on the PC in the GT3 class. So that's a lot for me to do, and I didn't realize how much it was until I got to the end of the PC race, because I did them back to back. Yeah, it's a lot to do, and to make videos that are as in-depth as Season 2, it's just not possible. I was planning to do that with the PS4 side again, to keep that sort of consistency there, but it's proving to be impossible to do that whilst also trying to bring you guys the videos for the Xbox One and the PC race. Plus, I also had that feeling that I didn't really want to prioritize one platform over another, so that's why I created the highlight videos for each of the platforms, and they pretty much follow the exact same format. And again, if you haven't seen those highlights videos, you're welcome to. I'll leave the links in the description and leave some annotations on the screen as well. Some really good races for the first round. You know, it was an interesting races across all the platforms, I would say, for various different reasons. So if you want to see my perspective on that, you're welcome to do so. But yeah, the idea of me being able to show different perspectives isn't quite as important, I would say, anymore as what it used to be. Because people have their own channels now, you know, you're seeing the results and different perspectives from different classes by subscribing to different channels. You know, Shaggy and Picano are two of the guys with, say, the most subscribers who are part of the PS4 Championship. They put up their own videos about it, so you see the perspectives before I've even got around to making a video. So it doesn't matter so much if I'm not giving those perspectives during a race. The best thing for me to do, in my opinion, is to show you my perspectives of the race in terms of the highlights videos that I've already done, in the same style and format that I've been getting used to with the live racing series, which I quite like, and then bring you these recap videos, which I can then bring you some extra footage. I can talk about the GT1 Championship, the GT2 Championship, the GT3 Championship, first on the Xbox One, then on the PC, then on the PS4. I can talk about them in detail. I can explain who did well, who didn't do so good, how the championship's going from race to race. I can bring you guys some extra footage. If people send me their footage, I can put it into this video. I can obviously put all of the cinematic shots into this video as well whilst I'm rambling on. So I think this is definitely the better way to do it. And again, it provides that recap of all the action, so I'm not leaving any championship in any platform out. I can sort of focus on everything and go back through everything. But again, as I mentioned, you know, you can watch all the full highlights. I'll leave those links down below. Now, first of all, let's focus on the Xbox One side. So basically what happens every weekend, on a Saturday, we have the Xbox One Championship, the Xbox One race, and then straight after it we have the PC race. Those are both on Saturday, and then on the Sunday evening we have the PS4 race. So I'm going to keep it in that order. So, you know, the highlights videos are Xbox One, then PC, then PS4, and these videos when I'm talking about the championships, I'm going to do Xbox One, then PC, then PS4. And again, remember that, you know, you can watch all of these races live on my Twitch account if you want to do that. The times and when the races start are all on that spreadsheet that I mentioned. So let's start with the Xbox One Championship. Now, I'm racing in GT1 in this, and this is the point where I should say, spoiler alert, you know, if you want to watch the highlights videos, this is where you should stop, because I'm going to basically talk about the results. So this is where you should stop and go watch that if you want. But yeah, I did okay in this. I was quite happy with my performance in this, barring the first corner, the first lap, sorry, where I was on top of over on my side and on top of my car, rolled over completely. Apart from that, it was a reasonably okay race. Now, I started to feel a little bit fatigued near the end of it, and that's where the mistakes were coming in, and I think a lot of people were experiencing that because obviously, you know, this is the first race. Each of these races is an hour and a half long. It's a long time to have to concentrate for, and until you get used to that, it's a bit difficult. But to have been in last place and then behind some of the GT2 cars as well, and to work my way back up through the pack and end up in second overall, that was brilliant, and I really I thought I had a decent race there. The winner of that race, Zenvo, he was actually a reserve driver for the Vanilla Unicorn team, so he's not part of the main championship. But he had a great race as well, you know, he was on the pace. I was catching him at various stages, but I was so far behind after that initial mistake that there was just nothing I could do, and he could then just take it easy because he pretty much had a flawless race. You know, he got into the lead and then didn't make any mistakes, whereas pretty much everybody else in GT1 did. Sean Calavera managed to snatch third place in the race on the very last lap as well, and that was a good battle between myself, him, and Berserker for the sort of second, third, and fourth positions in the closing stages, and it was quite tense. And then in the early stages, myself and Sean and also Crazy Man, who ended up disconnecting, were having some really good battles as well, even though they were further down in the order. So yeah, the GT1 race on Xbox One was pretty decent, and I was pretty happy with my own personal performance, but I think the race as a whole went well. It was quite action-packed and a lot of fun. Now on the GT2 side, pretty much RDT was leading this race for the vast majority of the time. You know, even when you look back on the footage and it was sort of 70 to 80 minutes into the race, he was still in the lead of GT2. And earlier on in the race, you could see that Bloodier X5 was further down, maybe in third place, I think it was. But I think he had a bit of a distraction at one point and hit something and had an incident, and then, you know, that sort of, the problem is when you do that and you have one single incident, it never just stops at one single incident, because your concentration's gone then, and then you start worrying about the time that you've lost, and then you go into having other accidents and other mistakes creep in. So by the end of it, Bloodier X5 had actually managed to get the win over RDT, but RDT did come in second place, and he had a great race really. He was well in the lead after the first few corners already, and he just managed to bring it home in a really good result. He's probably a little bit disappointed that he couldn't get the win, because he was in the lead for so long, but yeah, Bloodier X5 was quick as well. And the GT2 battle in general, there seem to be some really interesting battles all the way through, and it should be quite an interesting championship, and I think that goes for all of the championships, to be honest, because they're all very, very close. For those of you who don't know, we never used to split the championships by skill. It was all up to the drivers to choose which championship they wanted to race in. You know, did they want to race GT1 cars or GT2 cars, for example? But for this season, we decided to put sort of the quickest drivers in GT1, the middle drivers in GT2, and then the slower drivers in GT3. Not saying that anybody is slow or anything, but it's just a way to balance out the classes to make sure that everybody can fight for GT1 wins, everybody in GT2 can fight for GT2 wins, because we used to have a case in previous seasons where the top 2 or 3 or 4 in each class would be far and away better than everybody else, and people would get bored by the end of it if you weren't fighting for that. So I think that's worked out very well, especially on the side of the, you know, from the evidence in the very first round, all across all the platforms really. It was quite close, and there should be some interesting battles. In GT3 for the Xbox One, Wolfie Bigtail was pretty much in the lead for, I think, the majority of the race, and he just sort of ran away with it. Smax666 was in second place, and Ducati Doctor was in third. Ducati Doctor is my teammate. I just point out that my teammate in the GT2 class, Saki Bomb, didn't show up. Absolute scumbag. But yeah, it was a good result for my team, the Ron Racing team, for that round. It would have probably been even better if Saki Bomb had been there, and we got some more points. But yeah, Ducati Doctor, my teammate, was in third place there. And again, same sort of story with the GT3s. Now, there were a few guys at the back end of the GT3 class that were having their own little battle between each other, but they weren't necessarily up high with the top guys. But nevertheless, it felt like everybody mainly had someone to race against, which is again a good thing. But ultimately, Wolfie Bigtail was the leader and the winner in the GT3 class. Now, throughout the course of the season, I'm going to update you guys on the championship tables. I don't really need to do that for this first round, because the championship table is exactly the order that people finished. So I'm not going to do that for this first round when I'm talking about these. But for each subsequent round, I'm going to give you guys an update on the championship table, who's in the lead at what stage, and explain all about the permutations as we go on through the season. Now, I will talk about the teams championships though as well. It's not all just about drivers championships. Obviously, there is a team aspect to this. The Vanilla Unicorn team are far and away ahead already in the Xbox One Championship. There's still a long way to go, obviously, but they got, 2 victories. Zenvo was being a reserve in GT1 for the Vanilla Unicorn team, and Wolfie Bigtail was also part of that team as well, so they got 2 lots of 15 points for that. And just to point out that the team's championship combines the driver points, so they had a great start to the season. We'll see if it can last, but yeah, they are top of the table with 38 points. Escalera not too far behind though on 33 points, and those two I would say are far and away ahead of everybody else, because next up is Ron with 22 points. That's my team, and considering that we only had 2 people racing for us, that's not too bad. So yeah, it will be interesting to see how that goes on as the championship continues. Now on to the PC side. I'll leave links in the description, by the way, in all future videos of these, to if you want to go straight to me talking about the Xbox One side, the PC side, the PS4 side, whatever, I'll leave it all in the description. And throughout the course of this video, I'm recording this video without any footage in front of me, but what I'm going to do is try to put in some footage that is relevant to the action, and if I can get some footage from people who I'm talking about at the time, I'll put that in, and generally just give a bit more of an illustration on other people's races as we go through. So yeah, the PC side and GT1, this is a very, very stacked class. I would say this is probably the second strongest class as a whole, probably after the PS4 GT1 side. But everybody in here is very, very quick. But ultimately it was Doom Penguin and Super Stepper who were battling for the lead, even going on to the final lap. And you may have seen in the highlights video that there was a particularly crazy moment where we had those two battling for the lead in GT1, coming up to overtake myself and Novasari, who were battling for the lead in GT3, in addition to the second and third place in GT2 battling it out all at the same time. So that was pretty tense, pretty tricky to get around that. And it seemed like Super Stepper was in the lead. He hadn't been in the lead, and then he'd managed to catch up, overtake Doom Penguin, and then stay in the lead until that last lap. Still not sure what happened on that last lap, but he ended up a couple of seconds behind, whether he made a mistake or something under the pressure. But ultimately Doom Penguin was able to, on that final lap, get into first place and take the win. Just behind those two, there was quite a big gap really to Avivo, who was in third place, Grim Reaper, who was in fourth place, and Bebo, who were in fifth place. You may remember again on the highlights video that those were the 3 who were battling it all out, whilst me and Novasari were still battling it out in the middle of the race when they came around to lap us for the first time, and they ended up crashing, which caused me to crash, which was a little bit annoying. But yeah, the GT1 championship on PC again looks set to be very, very close, because I think as soon as people stop making those mistakes that are, you could say that mistakes are going to be more prevalent in the first round of a championship like this. As soon as people stop making those mistakes, it's going to be very, very tight, and some really good racing as we go through. It's a bit of a shame for Odan as well, who did disconnect during that race, unfortunately. And we've also got Fab Iceman to come back into the GT1 championship. He actually won the GT1 championship in season 2 for the PC side, so he's actually away at the moment, but he is coming back. I think it's for round 3, so that will be really interesting to see how he gets back into the mix as well, because I'm pretty sure he hasn't been racing with these. I've never raced against him really, apart from when I sort of guest drove in the GT1 championship last season. So it's been a while since he's probably raced against all of these guys who are quick now, and it'll be interesting to see how he fits into that, and whether he can battle for the wins as well. I'm sure he can. Now in GT2 for the PC side, Michiski got the win there, but from all of the reports, he wasn't anywhere near the victory at the start of the race and midway through the race. He was sort of well down in third place, and it was generally Sugarfree, Nos and Vikstro who ended up coming in second and third place in the race, who were battling it for the lead of GT2 for quite a long time. And again, you saw that battle during the highlights video when in areas that I've talked about previously. Now, it seemed like from all the reports that Michiski basically got on a spurt of speed, whether he had an issue straight away that caused him to fall back, and had an accident or whatever, he was able to then come back through the pack. He quickly overtook Vikstro, quickly overtook Sugar-Free Nos, who's actually my teammate on the Run Racing team for the PC side, and was able to then drive away and left basically Vikstro and Sugar-Free Nos to battle for second and third place in GT2, and that went right down to the wire. Basically, Vikstro just managed to finish ahead of Sugar-Free Nos, but again, some great racing there that meant that they were sort of very, very close right to the end. And once again, the GT2 battle in PC, it's probably going to be an interesting one all the way through the season. Now for GT3 on the PC side, Novasori, who I was racing against, was actually a reserve driver for that round, and he's probably better than he's probably better than a GT3 driver. He probably wouldn't be in the GT3 class, probably GT2, maybe even scrape into GT1, I'm not sure. So considering I wasn't expecting someone of his caliber of racer to be racing in the GT3 class, that was a shock to the system for me, and that's why I was getting frustrated halfway through the race, because I didn't put any practice into the Stinger GT, and what my plan with the GT3 side on PC was to basically handicap myself, because as I mentioned, we've split it by skill such that not the bad drivers or anything, but the slower drivers are in the GT3 class, so that it's reasonably well balanced. Now I wanted to participate in all of the classes to give you guys an idea of what it's like being in GT3 and being in GT2 and the differences between them and all that kind of stuff. So my idea was that in the GT3 class on PC, I would try to handicap myself if we did the first race and I was, a good couple of seconds a lap quicker, maybe I wouldn't put a turbo on for the next race, and basically do a little bit of balance of performance to make sure that everybody in GT3 could also battle for wins and enjoy the experience as well. That is still the plan, but obviously with that in mind, I didn't put in any practice for the GT3 class with the Stinger GT. So when I got into the race and I was having this intense battle with Novasori and also Thronebreaker, who must be said, apart from a few mistakes that set him further back later on into the race, he was holding his own very nicely as well. It took me by surprise a little bit, so I had to learn the Stinger GT as we went through the race, and it was a really intense battle, and I'm really happy that I managed to get that win, because it was quite close, and I really wanted to win in the Stinger GT. It is my favourite car in the game, but it was an intense race all the way through, battling with Novasori, getting taken out by the GT1s and then having to catch back up again by about 7 seconds, and just basically getting my head down and putting in the lap times. It was a really fun race, battling with him. And it was really close right until the end, as you saw in the highlights video. But it also must be said, at that point I was completely spent. I'd just done an hour and a half of an Xbox One race, and then I went straight into the hour and a half PC race as well, and by the time I got to the end of that, wow, I was done. So it's no surprise that I was feeling the fatigue, but that's only half the story until we get onto the PS4 side, as you've probably already seen from the highlights video. But yeah, the GT3 battle, Thronebreaker did a great job to finish in third place in that race behind myself and Novasori. Bradstar and Pesby were third, fourth and fifth. And again, as always with this championship, we're going to be going to different tracks, we're going to be using different cars. People will perform better on in different situations than others. It's not always going to be the same people who perform well in the same cars and on the same tracks. The idea of a championship is that the overall best after the course of 10 rounds will eventually be the champion in that class. And I just want to point out that I'm not necessarily saying that I'm way better than all of the guys in GT3 on PC. I'm just saying that, realistically, I want everybody to enjoy the race, and putting someone who might be a little bit more quick or consistent into a class like that is a little bit unfair, considering we have split it up by skill, at least to a certain extent. So that's why I'm saying there will be some balance of performance to my own cars, just to make sure that everybody enjoys it, and my presence there isn't ruining it for everybody else. In terms of the Teams Championship on PC, we've got the Los Santos Department for Water and Power in first place for that with a score of 37. They basically got a win, a second place, and a third place. They got a third place in GT1, the win in GT2, and then a second place because Novasori was their reserve driver in GT3. So they got a good haul of points there, and very close to, obviously 45 points is the maximum that you could get if the driver in each team was able to come through and win. You would get a maximum of 45 points for a team. So 37, and obviously the Xbox side 38 as well. Those are very, very high scores. Children of the Mountain were second, and Ron Racing are in third place as well in the Teams Championship. Ron Racing not too bad in all of the championships really, just up there as I would say, but we're biding our time, seeing how it goes. It's a long championship again, as I mentioned, with the Teams Championship, because all 10 rounds do count for the Teams Championship, whereas it's only the best 7 rounds that count for the individual championships. Now, talking of the individual championships, let's talk about the PS4 side. The PS4 side has, I would say, probably some of the biggest names, or some of the names that you may know more, because I'm generally on PS4 more often than not, and I'm racing against these guys a lot more on streams and in videos in general. You may see their names crop up. We'll start with the GT1 class, and first of all, Shaggy did a great job. Obviously, G-Unit, everybody knows who he is because he has far many more subscribers than I do. But yeah, if anybody doesn't at this point, I'm going to leave his link and links to all of the people whose footage that I use in this video. I'll leave all those links down in the description. But yeah, he had a great race. From first place, he was first place on the grid. He managed to just bring that home and get the victory. Picano was second place on the grid, and he came in second as well. So the top two certainly went with the starting positions, and that's not really a surprise. When you've got such high levels of drivers, I would say it can be quite difficult to make any difference with that. When you've got the a really, really quick driver starting on pole position, it's going to be difficult unless he has a mistake or you do something pretty significantly spectacular. It is difficult to change that and stop that person from getting the victory. So Shaggy did a great job to convert that pole position into first place. Picano to convert the second place on the grid into second place in the race. But we'll see how it turns out throughout the course of the championship, because obviously every single person starts in every single position. So, me, for example, I started in 6th place, but throughout the course of the championship, I'm going to start in 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. I'm going to start in every position once, and then for the final round, the 10th round, everybody starts in their championship positions at that point. So everybody gets a chance to be on pole position, everybody gets a chance to be at the back of the grid, and it's how you deal with that and how well you can do throughout the course of the championship that will determine how well you do overall. May Ryan and Doodle Monopoly had a great race for 3rd position all the way through. I believe that Doodle was pretty much on May Ryan's arse all the way through the race, so they had a great battle, and I would say May Ryan had great composure to be able to hold off Doodle for all of that time, finishing in 3rd place. And Smithy112 managed to come home in 5th place after having, I believe, some incidents throughout the race, but he ultimately had the fastest lap. So he's certainly one to look out for future rounds when he may not have as many incidents, I would say. But again, the GT1 battle is going to be pretty crazy, as are all of these championship battles throughout the course of the season. Now, GT2 and Mike BWFC, he is on the exact same team as Shaggy, the West Coast Classics team. He started on pole position, and he did exactly what Shaggy did as well, just converted that pole position into the race victory. He made very, very few mistakes, and he deserved the win for that. The first round of this championship was completely categorized by mistakes. It was all mistakes by so many people throughout all of the races, myself included, and it was the people who made the least mistakes who ended up winning the races. So I don't think that's going to be the case all the way through the championship. It may be a factor because an hour and a half is a long time in these to do these events, so you do have to be concentrating all the way through. But there is going to come a point where people start to get comfortable with that length of race and start to be able to be a little bit more consistent throughout, and then it will start to get a bit closer and a bit more to do with pace and how well you can manage the traffic. But yeah, he had a great performance. Tom Tad ended up getting second place from Abe Gunners. They pretty much had a race-long battle that I was a part of for a certain amount of time, and I was battling with them, but again, too many mistakes on my side. Shred Ninja came in 4th place, just ahead of me. I wasn't able to catch him right at the end, unfortunately. But yeah, my race in particular for the GT2 Championship on PS4 was absolutely horrendous. It started off really well, and I felt really good. I felt on the pace. My lap times were pretty decent as well. I felt comfortable with the car. I was only 3 or 4 seconds behind Mike at certain points throughout the first couple of laps before I made my first mistake. And I felt like I was able to push on and go and take the fight to him and go and get that win. Even after the first couple of mistakes that I made, and I was back in, that battle for second position with Abe Gunners and Tom Tad, I was still feeling reasonably good. I was still feeling like, okay, maybe first place is gone, but I can get that second place again, and I can come home in second anyway. Considering I started in 6th place and I had a really great start to get up to second place in the first place, I was pretty happy at that point, and I was pretty comfortable, and finishing second would have been a result. But then halfway through the race, it just all hit me. The fact that I'd done the Xbox One and the PC races the previous day, the fact that I'd streamed early to do the secondary championship on PS4, I wasn't actually racing in that, but I was, covering it and spectating it. It all caught up with me, and my concentration just was completely gone. And that's why I made so many mistakes in the latter half of that race, ending up going from a battle for second to dropping all the way down to 6th, and ultimately just finishing the race in 5th place. The same as Smithy in the GT1 battle, who was also my teammate. So yeah, it wasn't the best first round, I would say. I wasn't as comfortable with the car either. I could have put in more practice as well. And yeah, although I had a good first half of the race, it definitely all caught up with me by the second half. So that's something that I need to address for future rounds. But, it's a long championship again, and hopefully that will be one of the rounds that my points are dropped, because it's only your best 7 point scores that count. Now in the GT3 championship, it was Futuro. His proper PSN ID is Camp Corlin, but he goes by so many different names that we just call him Futuro, because that's where he's mostly known. He got the win in GT3, but I don't think it was quite as easy as that. I'm Awesome 0044, who was a reserve driver in that GT3 championship for the first round. He was in the lead for quite a lot of the time. I believe that Futuro was having a good battle with 40 as well, until he made a mistake. So it was certainly not the same as the GT1 and the GT2 battles, where the leader, the pole position guy, just got off into the front and drove away with it. There were multiple changes of lead in the GT3 class, and ultimately Futuro was able to get that pass done on I'm Awesome 44 and then be able to drive away for the win. But again, it wasn't an easy thing to do. Ultimately, 40 was able to bring it home in second place after quite an interesting battle with VXW K95 as well. They finished second and third. I'm Awesome ended up finishing in 4th place. But again, people are going to be quicker on different tracks, and things are going to get interesting as the championship goes on. So the team's championship for PS4, the West Coast Classics team, again, they got 2 victories with Mike in GT2 and Shaggy in GT1. They got the 2 victories. So when you're getting those sort of points, 15 points from 2 separate classes, you're always going to pretty much guarantee that you'll be winning that round in terms of teams championships. Rich's Majestic and Devon Weston are second and third, and they're pretty close. They're exactly the same on points, with Ron Racing in 4th place, thanks to that 15 points and the victory from Futuro, who is our teammate, and sort of mine and Smithy's 5th place, as we're just putting a few extra points in, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of the recap and the roundup for the first round of the Multiclass Endurance Championship Season 3. It's been a long one to talk about. I wasn't expecting it to be this long, but I I don't need to really show the championship that much. I can just talk about the races. As I mentioned, in future videos, I'll show the championship table, but if you want to have a look at it all anyway, all the information is on the spreadsheet. There's championship tables for the drivers, the teams. That spreadsheet is linked on the first line of the description. Any information that you need for this championship is going to be in there, whether it's who's in what team, how the team championship are doing, who scored what, all of it is in there. But yeah, these videos are hopefully to show you guys some great shots, great footage, give a more rounded view of the championship as a whole, because since I'm hosting it, I'm the one who's putting in all the effort, I guess you could say, to make sure it's successful. I want to make sure that I'm not forgetting about any of the championships. I don't want to forget about GT3 on the Xbox One. I don't want to forget about GT2 on the PC. I want to try to cover all the championships to give you guys a more rounded view about who's winning what and who's doing well. And championships, as racing championships especially, they always have twists and turns. They always have intrigue, they always have drama, and it's going to be really interesting to see how all of these championships progress, because this is the first time we've ever really done this and had so many championships going on all at once, with the same rule set and the same cars and all that kind of stuff across 3 different platforms. So I hope you guys do continue to enjoy the highlights videos that I put out, and also these recap videos with some extra footage, and I hope you enjoyed the cinematic shots as well. There'll be plenty more of those, obviously, and I hope it's also a good way to do this, because there was no way that I was going to be able to do it in terms of keeping it the same way as Season 2. On that point, remember, if you do want to watch the Season 2 and Season 1 championships, they will be linked in the description. So there's a lot of information in the description anyway. You feel free to check that out. So thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate it. Be sure to leave all your comments down below as well. Let me know what you thought. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.